All right, guys. Hey, Jason Reese here with Focus Creative Studio. Just wanted to jump in. I can't quite go live yet, but thought I'd give everybody a quick sneak peek on some work I'm doing here on the coker drums for my refinery. And this is a process that I use for a majority of my 3D modeling work that I'm 3D printing and generating custom models. So I'm going to go through with the coker parts that fit the PVC, just standard 2-inch PVC pipe, and show when how they come off the printer. Has supports. I don't have one of those with me today, but I can at least give you an idea of what they look like. You can kind of see a little bit of the nubs around the outside edge. That's where all my supports are. We're going to sand all that off today. And when we're done, we'll end up with surfaces that look more like this, where this whole edge on the bottom is completely smooth, so that we get nice, clean mating surfaces when we're putting pieces together. Now, this model actually has one top piece, which are these. So, and they're designed to have supports inside while it prints. And so that's what you see with that little bit of radial pattern in there. Those are places for supports to hit, and allows limited suction problems with 3D printing, which I know a lot of people struggle with. Curved surfaces are tough on the top because you're just, unless I print them at an angle, which I don't like to do, I'm going to get a little bit of this banding that you can probably see a little bit here. And it's just the layer process. Some of it's the geometry that I only go to a certain level with smoothness on these round parts of geometry, because I can sand a lot of it smooth with some sanding sticks. But today, that's kind of the process we're going to go through. That's one piece there of the coker model. The bottom, the base is a two-part piece. This actually will slide into the unheading valve. There's a piece of pipe that goes on the end of this, but these pieces go together. I've designed these to press fit, drop in just like that. So that ends up being the bottom half of the coke drum, so that it sets down on the platform. This direction, the PVC tube would be to the top of this. So, but then this all can get painted separately, and that way, if we get into a painting stage and weathering stage, you've got some flexibility in not even having this piece part of this while you're painting. I didn't grab one, but you can grab like a gator clip stick and grab this so that you can paint this with an airbrush, rattle can, and then get in and add some additional weathering inside, because this is the bottom of the coke drum. So this would be exposed to the pet coke coming out the bottom, and it's just nasty black stuff. So this would get all dirty, and I'll go through that in another video down the road as I'm pulling this together. But I just wanted to kind of show the process I go through. It doesn't take too long, honestly, to get these ready for assembly. So I know that 3D printing is, some people are just scared to get in and do it, and it is a little bit of a challenge once you get a printer and you're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a great process for model railroaders, gun plug guys, military modelers, that allows them to do some custom stuff that's just not available. One of the other pieces, this is a 5-piece kit that I developed. It's a 30,000 gallon storage tank, specifically for refineries, that I've got reference photos I can put up, but this is available online through my store. But basically, there's a tabbed system, and you can kind of see these keys, alignment keys in the bottom, that this allows me to do a male-female tab in between the pieces. And I continue to modify that as I do each one of these projects, just to make it better, easier to assemble. This is a custom direct-fired heater. This is the base, so this thing ends up being 2 feet tall when it's done. But you can see I'm modeling in the steel panels and support structures, that are all associated with these models. And then this is 4 pieces. So I've got a couple of these over here. Each one of these comes as a separate piece. This one's already been sanded. You can see the top is perfectly smooth on this one. But I've got some cleanup to do. Looks like just comes right out. So this is previous dry fit. I busted off one of the tabs, but then you'll see the bottom is labeled with a B. I don't know if that'll pop up here. You can see that if it'll focus. Not going to focus for me, but each one's labeled. So B, and then the next one is 1. So you simply line the male-female tabs up, and they press fit together. So I've got and then number 2 would be next. And from the top, what I've done is allowed you to actually line up the numbers from piece to piece, so that as you go up, all of the modeling detail is aligned based on how I've developed the custom model based on reference photos, so that as you're assembling these, it's being built the way you want. Now, you can rotate them and turn it and do anything you want with it, but there is kind of a specific way they're supposed to go together. And then this one is the last one before the platform that slides in here. They're press fit, but they're not super tight. I mean, you got to leave a little bit of room for the glue. So give me a second here, and I'll get this one dropped in. There. So now all 4 pieces are together, which is the same as this model. It's the exact same model, just a couple different resins. But these are test pieces that I've been using to make sure that after the support side, where all the nubs are, those get completely sanded flat to create these nice seamless transitions between the pieces that you can see here, so there's not a bunch of gaps. But this is going to be a little different than what most people may associate with buildings and structures and model railroading, because they're just wanting you to do plastic kits and not necessarily worried about the details. I'm trying to focus on the detail of things for scale modeling, so that those that want to build standalone pieces for a diorama or just display can do that. But these are really intended to serve both purposes. You can build a standalone model just as a cool model to build, or you could actually do them in order to be part of your refinery layout, which is what I'm developing. This is a piece that I've got a 6-7 foot module here hanging above me, and I'll show that another time. But today I just wanted to kind of do a quick intro. These are going to be raw, unedited videos that when I get down to do a build session or a work session of some kind, I just want to capture on video and give people an idea of the work process I go through for things both scratch building with wood kits, DPM modular kits. That's going to be a completely different one because I've got some cool stuff that's going with those kits, with inserts and things. And this is all HO scale. I will venture into the N scale stuff, but this is predominantly for HO scale. That's what I model, and it's what I'm working on with a lot of interest here in the 3D print community. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these that hasn't been done. And this is my general work setup. Sometimes I don't have all 3 pieces of sandpaper here, but I've got to actually have a piece of glass on top of a piece of foam core, black foam core, that I've just taped all the edges so it's not a hard surface below. But the glass is critical. You want to have a flat surface to sand against, because the next critical piece is trying to maintain an even pressure and rotating the pieces to get rid of these nubs nice and evenly, so that we get up with a perfect finish. But I've got 2 things of water. I try and keep one clean. I've got some paper towels up here above that you'll see me dip and wipe off. And then I got some sanding sticks. Sometimes we get into pieces that aren't just nubs around this perimeter surface, but like in this case, I've got some inside here from supports that I'm going to want to go ahead and sand file those off. So you'll see me dip just these little bitty metal jeweler's files in there and knock those edges off. The water is critical. What I found, you don't want to ever sand resin without a dust mask on if you're going to do it dry. It's horrible to breathe. You don't even want to have to deal with it. It's just a major health issue. So save yourself the hassle. Get a great respirator if you want to do this dry. You can sand this dry. It sands super easy. It's actually easier than plastic in my opinion. It's a great medium to work with. I like to do dry, or I like to do wet, I'm sorry, because I don't want to deal with the mask all the time, and sometimes I just have a real quick piece I want to work through, and I don't want to go get the respirator mask from the paint booth area and deal with all that. It's just a mess because it's creating dust like drywall dust. So I tend to go the wet route. Some people say still use a mask. I've been doing this for a year, and maybe time will tell, it'll be different, but I'm not inhaling a significant amount of dust doing it this way. So I've already pre-wetted these a little bit, but you'll see I'll just grab these, drop them in, and then I'll rotate. I'll grab just a little more water. Make sure we get this piece wet. It'll start slurrying here in a minute. More. And these all have a lip modeled into them on the bottom that even though the nubs hit, I've got about a 0.2 millimeter drop on the model itself. So it gives me just a little bit extra to sand off as well when I do these vertical cylinder pieces. And you'll see here I haven't even hit the true wet sandpaper yet. This is just regular sandpaper. This is 220. This is probably 150 or maybe even 80. 150. I use it as wet, dry sandpaper. It holds up almost as well as wet, dry, just regular sandpaper. But you can see here now already that this outside edge, those nubs are all gone. And that was just hitting it for what, maybe 30 seconds to a minute there on the sandpaper. Now I still have a slight edge all the way around. That's that 0.2 millimeter drop that I have modeled into the piece, so that I'm never actually sanding against the finished surface when I start this process. There's always excess material is some leeway. So it's a little forgiving in that regard with how I'm setting up these models. So I'll hit it, I'll move to the 150. And you'll see me rotating. That's that pause each time. I'm counting like 8-10 seconds, then rotating the piece underneath my fingers so that I'm trying to maintain a nice even flat pressure on the piece. And then the last one, get a little bit clean water here. I'll just hit the wet dry sandpaper, and this is 1500. This is all the farther I've ever gone on these pieces. When I get into sanding the round tops on some of my tank domes, I'll show that one here in a second, I go to 2000 with some wet dry sandpaper on those to smooth those pieces out on the top, just so that they look a little bit better when I hit them with paint. And you can see the slurry starting to build up, so you know it's taking material off. And I'm just checking that outside edge. Gone. Okay, so now I mentioned earlier I'm actually gonna grab my round back file here, just get it wet. I've got nubs inside here. You can kind of hear them clicking. And there's a lip in here that funnel piece rests against as part of my two-part piece here. And I put a place of support on the edge of that lip so that it holds it in place and keeps it from pulling due to the suction on the FEP while printing. Just lots of little bitty things you learn when you print, hundreds of pieces every week, what works, what doesn't work. Just kind of guarantees your success rate a little bit. I think I'm sitting right around 93, 95% success prints. Just because once I dial something in after 4 or 5 tries, I load up my build plate and I'm printing, I think with these I'm printing 4 at a time, maybe only 3 at a time, I forget, on the small printer, and then 5 or 6 at a time on the bigger printers. And then I'm not having failures after that, so I can literally print for 5-6 days and not have any failures on these pieces when I do a run. And that's the same when I get into doing my masonry pieces as well. But then I just, every now and then, drop it in this water. I'll just drying this piece off. Really should have a rag versus the paper towel, since the rag would last a little bit longer. But this piece is effectively done. I got a nice smooth edge that will sit flush against the plate. Let me grab my test piece there. Right, so a couple of you may have seen this. This is actually an FDM filament print that I used as a mock-up just to test my concrete color, weathering, sanding the pieces, make sure it was going to be what I wanted. And then this piece will actually sit on top of it like that. So that's why you want that outside edge flush, so that you can see there's no gap at the bottom there. Nice, clean, flush finish. And then this piece will actually slide, designed to slide right into the bottom of a piece of standard 2-inch PVC. Nice, clean, flush edge. So when you're looking at something like these towers, and I've got these in development for all kinds of PVC pipe related platforms and detail fittings. Just takes time to get them all done to this level. This was the first major project I've undertaken with the PVC pipe. So I'm getting a lot of things rolling there. But you can kind of see that, that allows that fit to be pretty nice. So not difficult. That's one piece. So take that, set it off to the side. We got one more here that doesn't have quite as many. The main support ridges are gone, but I didn't get down to the lip, so I'm going to go ahead and get that. Pretty heavy lip on this one still. There we go. It's not hard. It took me a while to figure out, that just rotating it every 5 to 10 seconds, count the number of swirls, however you want to do it, leads to a very consistent, smooth edge without a bevel from north to south, east to west. As long as you keep spinning it, you end up with a pretty solid, I'll put it in there, that's for my files, pretty solid flat surface to work with. And then once I get them all done, I generally take them to we've got a washroom sink, and then I can hit everything with soap and water and a toothbrush. I handle it with gloves because I don't want to get finger oil on the pieces after I'm done with, kind of the final prep work. And I mean, this is basically ready to assemble at this point, and this just goes on the opposite side. So, and with this, you'll notice there's no ledge like with the base here. We have a ledge, and that drops into the PVC. Well, the top, I want the dome to be the perfect part of the print. So there's no ledge on the bottom. So what I've done is the inside diameter of this is approximately the same as the inside diameter of 2-inch PVC. So you can just place some guide pieces of styrene, super glue them in, drop this on, and have a little bit of room to move this around, adjust it. You could glue straight to the top of the PVC and not do any type of alignment pieces inside, because when you get that edge perfectly flat against a piece of PVC, then it's good. Now I do the same thing with the PVC. Once I cut it on the table saw or the chop saw, that's pretty flat, but it's not perfect. And so one of the things that I do is I just go through the same process. You're not dealing with the dust issue that you're dealing with with the resin, but it's still not a perfectly flat face. And you want this face to be a flat match for your resin pieces. So I just go through the same process, and I usually do it with just cutting that on the heavier 150 grit sandpaper, just because it cuts through the plastic pretty well. And I still hit it with the wet dry as that final piece. That way when I slide these together, that edge is perfectly clean. Now it's not going to be, an absolutely perfect fit in terms of there's just a little bit of a ridge, but for what we're doing, this is, it's within a 64th of an inch, maybe even tighter tolerance than that. If I really want to get that picky about it, because I'll see it, then I can sand this flush once everything's assembled. But in this particular case with the coke drums, you're not actually even going to see it up close because I've got so much going on in those models that I'm not even going to deal with it. The tops possibly, but I may have the top deck just sitting below that, and with enough other things going on, it shouldn't be an issue in leaving a slight gap there. So that's really it. I'm going to go ahead and sand through the rest of these, and then once I get further along, I'll jump back in here for the assembly of one of the towers.